In this video, we are going to be adding a roof assembly to each of the four structures. So I'm going to start with the roof over the mass timber structure. I'm going to go to level 3, and I've changed the visual style to this just temporarily to wireframe. So to do this, you would go down to this status bar and click on wireframe. The reason I want to do that is I need to be able to see the structure below the roof surface. So when I look at the mass timber structure, I'm seeing not only the roof, but also some of the framing members that are below the roof. We're going to be adding flat roofs to all of these, or they're already structured as flat roofs or low slope roofs. When we say flat roof, it's not exactly, completely flat. It's going to have a slope to it. Typically, when you have a low slope roof, you need to drain it, of course, and there are two places that you can locate the drain. One is somewhere on the interior of the roof surface. So let's say like right here, for example. Another one is at the perimeter. So you can basically have a low pitch that takes the roof to something called a scupper. So when you locate a roof drain in a roof plan, you can see here that in this kind of oddly shaped roof plan, we have a number of areas that are broken down into rectangles. And basically these arrows indicate the direction of the slope, and they're sloping down towards a roof drain. So even with a flat roof, you'll have a slight slope. It's a 1/4 inch per foot is what we're going to be drawing for our details. And basically you want the water to transfer into these roof drains and then be passed through piping. Now, where you include these roof drains really depends on the design of the structure that you're working with. It's possible that you don't have a place to bring them down. And so in that case, you may use something called a scupper. So we have scuppers in this plan all the way around. Sometimes the scuppers are used to basically be an alert that says, okay, the roof drain has filled or is clogged and water's coming out the scupper. So you have a problem to resolve. Some buildings just have scuppers. Some have only roof drains. Maybe there's enough roof drains to cover any sort of problem where, you have one that clogs and the other ones can kind of take over and, handle the removal of the water. Sometimes you have something called an overflow. So here is an example of a roof drain, and the light blue indicates the water level. And this is a kind of simplified version of a scupper. So basically the idea is that if this water begins to fill any higher, the water is going to start coming down the side of the building. And if you see that, then you know that there's perhaps an issue with the drain. This is an example of an installation of a scupper. This building is not complete, and there's still some finishes that need to be added, but basically you're seeing this this component sticking out of the wall, and that's going to be the place where the water is coming out. Now, the details for this vary. You can have some very well done details that look more ornamental, but anyway, this is basically the idea with the scuppers versus drains. In this final image, what we're seeing here is the roof drain. Okay, so water is going to pass through this basket and drop into the piping. And we also have an overflow. So if this one should have any problems, the water will go to the secondary drain or the overflow drain. So we'll be adding this area here as a low slope roof. We could probably get a drain that's large enough to, at least in terms of capacity, to cover the whole roof. But it's a good idea to include, 2 drains for some of the reasons that I was explaining before. Now, the other thing is that when we bring these drains down, we cannot bring them on top of structure. So I couldn't locate a drain, let's say right here. This would be a better location. And so that's where I'm going to put my first drain. So what I'm going to do here is take a few measurements. I think it's 8 feet 4 inches from this grid line is where this one is. So maybe a drain that's 4 feet 2 inches above here would place it in the center. Now, again, the choice of where to bring these drains kind of depends on what's happening on the floor below. Perhaps you have a wall someplace below that you can bring it down. We're not getting into that level of detail, so we're just going to locate it in a place that avoids hitting some of these beams and girders. Okay, so for this assembly, what I'm going to do is go to the Architecture tab, and I'm going to the floor options here. I'm going to choose an architectural floor. And I know this isn't a floor that we're detailing here, but this will work nonetheless. I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to look for a generic 8-inch floor assembly because I'm going to end up changing it here. I'm going to edit the type. I'm going to duplicate this one. I'm going to call it roof insulation, and I'll indicate how thick it is, 6.5 inches. Say okay. And for the structure, I'm going to just use this structure layer as my rigid insulation layer. So I'm going to click on the material here, and I'm going to search for rigid insulation. There it is. And okay. My thickness, I'm going to change this to 6.5, and I'm going to check mark the variable checkbox here because I want to actually create this slope, but I want the underside of my insulation layer to be flat, so it sits on top of the roof panels. Okay, so when you click on variable, that means I could make it thicker on the edges than on the inside part. And I'll click on OK. And apply and okay. So 6.5, where that comes from is based on this 1/4 inch per foot. You find the lowest point that it might be, and then you calculate a 1/4 inch per foot, and then you're given a thickness of the material. All right, so I'm going to start by making a rectangle, and I will snap to this point here and this point right here. Okay, and I'm going to hit the check mark. And this will be a good time to save my project. Okay, now we have an issue with the highlighted floors. We're going to ignore that notification. But what I am going to do is go to the section looking north and see what that's all about. So the problem is that there's an overlap with the roof panels. So what I need to do is change the height offset to 6.5, apply. So now it's sitting on top of the roof. And by the way, if you haven't, you may want to go to the thin line setting so that you can see the line work a little bit more clearly. All right, now what we'll be doing in the next few steps is tapering the insulation towards some roof drains. All right, I've gone back to the level 3 plan, and I'm going to change my visual style back to, I don't want shaded. We'll do the hidden line type. Okay, so now I have the roof, and I know where those framing members are below, so I can begin to locate my drains to avoid them. So now what I'm going to do, so I've selected the roof, and I know that I've selected it because it says floor roof insulation 6.5 here. What I'm going to start by doing is adding a point. This point is going to be the location of the drain. So I'm going to click at the center of the intersections here. And then what I'm going to do is modify this sub element. So I'll click on it and I'm going to move it from that center location to halfway between the structural grid lines. So 12.5 feet to the right, and then I'll move it again 4 feet 2 inches. Oops. Let's see here. What did I do? Let's move it. Or I'll move it back 4 feet 2 inches. And then I'll go to the move tool again and move it up. I want it to be right here. So it misses the structural lines. And I'm going to add another point here. And I'm going to click on modify sub elements. This is a sub element of that roof plane. And I'm going to move it over 12.5 feet. And I'm going to move it again 4 feet 2 inches down. Okay. All right. Now, before I kind of finish with this boundary business, I'm going to add a split line. So we'll create a high point that runs all the way along the center here. And I want to snap to the midpoint, right along that column line to here, and edit the boundary, click on the check mark, and you'll see that these two drains appear, but we don't have our pitch lines yet. So while I'm still selecting this, I'm going to modify the sub elements. I'm going to click on one of the drains. The reason I don't see those slope lines is because the drains are still too high. I need to bring this down to 24 feet 4 inches, and now we can see the slope lines. And I'll do the same thing with this one. Click on it, 24 feet 4 inches. And there they are. Edit the boundary, click on the check mark, and what you should see are these two X's that indicate the slope direction. So I've got slope down, a slope down, down, down to this drain, and on the right side, down, 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 and down.